Lead together, embrace change, enhance everyone's journey. The 3 core principles of SmartStop, a leader in self-storage real estate across North America, reinforce why we're proud to bring you SheEO Lead-In, the podcast featuring curated conversations with powerful women sharing their impactful wisdom. It's a self-knowledge, self-discovery, and self-preneurship audio storage vault created by and for women. SmartStop's presentation of SheEO Lead-In begins right now.
Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the SheEO Leading-In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of SheEO Lead-In. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights, despite their sometimes rocky paths, and found a way to lead in. Today we're here with Dr. Alexis Wohl with San Diego Humane Society, the project wildlife manager. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great. I want to hear all about all of the cool animals that you get to deal with on a daily basis. And is there something that led you to this career in your childhood, or did it just kind of did you fall into place?
I think every child who loves animals growing up thinks they want to be a veterinarian. So I found in one of my kindergarten projects that said, I want to be a veterinarian. And so I think that's pretty natural. And then as you get older, you learn about other careers and professions you can have. But I truly never strayed from that. And the wildlife kind of worked its way in. And, back in the day when wildlife rehabilitation was a little bit different than it is today, my family was always kind of taking in the injured and the hurt. And we would either find rehabbers, or if we were able to rehab the animal, we would do it ourselves, which I would definitely not recommend nowadays. But back then, that's what we did. And from there, it just really solidified my wants to go into wildlife. And then I really found my way along in veterinary school and volunteering at different wildlife centers around the country. And I just think it's the best job in the world.
So what brought you to San Diego? Because you mentioned that you're from back east.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in New York. I went to school at upstate New York. And most of my family is from the East Coast. And I'd actually never stepped foot on the West Coast until I started veterinary school. And I had lived in many states on the East Coast. And obviously California is very glamorous when you're from the East Coast. And I moved to LA, and I have to admit I was a little underwhelmed. Just the traffic alone was very nerve-wracking for me. And being from New York, I'm used to traffic. But yeah. And I was like, I'm definitely not going to stay in California. I definitely want to move my way back to the East Coast. And I did for a year. In between, I did an internship, a wildlife internship in Massachusetts, and did another internship where I am today in San Diego. And San Diego just felt like home. And there's not a lot of wildlife jobs in the country, and so you often have to go where the job is. And for me, I'm really lucky that it ended up being in San Diego.
Well, and we have a lot of different wildlife because we've got, the mountains, the deserts. We have really kind of some different that you probably wouldn't find everywhere in the country, don't you think?
Yeah, San Diego is actually considered one of the most biodiverse areas in the world because of that. So, we're on the coast, we're near the ocean, we're near the mountains, we're near the desert. We're in the middle of a flyway, so we have a lot of migratory species that come in. Yeah. So, yeah, we're in the hotbed of biodiversity here, and that's really fun.
Well, that makes sense why you would come here then. I have to admit, when I was a girl, I wanted to be a little girl. I thought, I'll just be... I want to take care of animals. I love them so much. I grew up in Ramona, so I dealt with domestic animals, but there was definitely always wildlife around. I think, one of the cool things is you can still live in the middle of a city and you have like open space, because, you know, a lot of cities are very intentional about having that open space. And it's also the law too, to have those habitat areas that are protected and never can be built on. You know, oftentimes I'll see behind my house, even today, I'll see like a deer or, you know, some kind of wild animal. And, you know, it is something that you don't always see in every state, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, San Diego is unique in that it's kind of fit in that way with our all of our canyons in between the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
That's really allowed the animals to thrive around us and live amongst us.
Yeah, and there's a lot of migration areas and all of that, which is really neat. And, you know, we also have the Wild Animal Park, too. Well, it used to be called the Wild Animal Park. What are we calling it now? The
San Diego Zoo Global Alliance, I think, kind of encompasses all of what they do.
Yeah, and that's a very special place. I mean, how many places like that are in the United States? I don't think too many.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up watching Animal Planet. That was my favorite, you know, and I remember ever wanting to go to the San Diego Zoo. It was a dream. So the second I moved here to LA for vet school, I'm like, I'm going to the San Diego Zoo. And it's great. We get to work with them quite a lot, especially with our endangered species and the species that they study in the area. And they're a wonderful resource for the community.
And then when they have babies, what a wonderful opportunity. Or you find a nest that's, you know, been maybe abandoned or whatnot. It's a good place to actually take those animals to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about your childhood. Did you always want to be a veterinarian? And when you decided to go into this and you kind of switched and pivoted, was there was there a mentor that helped you bring you to this, or how did that all evolve?
Yeah, so like I said, I wanted to be a vet since I was a little girl, and I think that's very common for many people. And to really realize what it was, I worked at a veterinary office, like a dog and cat office, and I was a vet assistant and a receptionist. And I loved the medicine. I loved working with the pets. But it wasn't all what I thought it would be. You know, people think a veterinary job is, you know, working with puppies and kittens all day and it's just rainbows and sunshine all the time.
Yeah.
And then you start watching the vets there, and it is a really, really hard job. A huge portion of it is paperwork and records, and that's not fun. And then another huge portion of it is, you know, having really difficult conversations with clients about their pets, and you know, usually, unfortunately, needing to ask for money, you know, to support your business and support the pet. And those are just really hard conversations to have. But I was still really interested in it, and I still really thought it was an amazing career and being able to help animals and people. And so after undergrad, I applied for veterinary school and I didn't get in. And what? I was devastated. I had worked my whole life for this.
Yeah.
I had volunteered at a horseback riding center for disabled children for years. And I volunteered at a zoo, and I was a receptionist, and I was an assistant, and I had thousands and thousands of hours. I was a 4.0 student, and I didn't get in. And so I decided I was going to take a year off and do an internship to better myself and figure out, you know, what I wanted to do. And I landed in a wildlife hospital as an intern, and I was like, this is it. This is the ultimate. This is the most amazing job. You get to work with wild animals, different animals every day, and you're not only helping these individual animals, you're helping the ecosystem, you're helping your community, and you know, it was just so fulfilling. And so there I connected with my mentor, who is still a very close friend today. And I wanted to be her. And she was so incredible. And the dedication that she had for the facility and for these animals, and her calm, cool composure all the time. And I felt like this is where I belonged. So then the second time I applied for veterinary school, I did get in, and I was kind of one-track mind. I was like, I want to do wildlife and wildlife only. But to do that, you need to have a good understanding of small animal, you know, dog and cat practices, because that's where all the research is and that's where the information is. And so establishing a good foundation of knowledge is really important. But any chance I got, every summer, every elective, I was doing wildlife in some capacity or another. And doing so, I think, made me well-rounded, both as a veterinarian, but also as a wildlife veterinarian, and also as a wildlife rehabilitator, because I think a lot of wildlife vets don't know the basics of rehabilitation, and that's most of what wildlife medicine is as well.
So let's go back to kind of your roots, and that is, do you have a one word that you think maybe really represents who you are?
I would say integrity. I work really hard, and I'm proud of that. And everything I do, I want to do well, really well. So I hope that's what represents me.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love that. So let's talk a little bit about success and failure, because I think a lot of times, our listeners might think, oh, if I ever fail, that's a bad thing. It isn't always that way. So do you have some thoughts on success and failure?
Absolutely. I mean, I was devastated when I didn't get into veterinary school.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably one of the best things to happen, because I might have gone on and continued with small animal medicine. And not that I don't think it's a fulfilling, amazing career, but I can't imagine being as happy and fulfilled as I am in my current career path. So I think viewing every failure, as an opportunity really to reevaluate, to figure out what's important for you, and take that time to think how you want to approach the next obstacle. And so I'm grateful, very grateful I didn't get in the first time.
Yeah. So, and that oftentimes, stumbling blocks actually become things that shape you and push you to a certain direction. And you probably would have never done that internship and taken that time.
Yeah. I had no reason to have been there. So absolutely.
Yeah. And so it's probably a very small specialty, I would think.
There's very few hospitals around the country that are able to employ a full-time veterinarian. And a lot of, we call them like backyard or home rehabbers, might work with a local veterinarian, but to have a true center that employs a veterinarian full-time is very, very rare.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's say one of our listeners today says, oh, I found this animal in my backyard or, on the side of the road or whatever. And unfortunately, when there is cohabitation with man and animals, there are consequences sometimes that end up happening. So how do folks know where to take that animal? How do they find out about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think luckily the field of wildlife medicine is really expanding because our community is asking for it.
Yes.
Social media is a huge push, both good and bad. But yeah. I think overall, the community wants to have a place to bring these injured, orphaned, or ill animals. So there are resources online. The Humane Society of the United States has a great resource where you can look up rehabbers by state and county. Mm-hmm. And like I said, there's not a lot of big rehab centers like Project Wildlife out there. So you're probably going to be looking up people who are doing it in their houses, under Fish and Wildlife and permitting and such. But they're working with their veterinarians, they're working with their community. And so if you go to this website, you'd be able to search and see what's closest to you. It might be hours away. Right. And hopefully that's changing. I think there's a lot of people of my generation who are interested in this field and growing the veterinary field specifically for wildlife as well. So, and I would always say to call first, because that animal might actually not need saving. So there's a lot of animals out there that are learning how to fledge or grow up, and their parents are right near them watching them. And so we always do the watch and wait campaign, because depending on the time of year, you might actually be doing more harm than good by jumping up and scooping them up and bringing them into your local rehab.
Interesting. I hadn't actually even thought of that. So do you do then, like if someone calls in or they send a message, then you ask them the questions, go through like the whole questions, and then you say, okay, you might need to take them back?
Yeah. Especially, so pretty much we'd say March to August, maybe September, is baby season for most of mammals and birds, and reptiles even.
Yeah.
And so we actually have a really great website, sehumane.org, and you go to our wildlife help hub, and it actually will walk you through, does this animal need to come into care? So it's going to help you identify, does this bird, is it little white fluffy bird? Yes. Okay, then maybe that's a baby. Is this bird on the ground or in the nest still? Is this bird injured? Is this bird able to fly? And those kinds of questions will help determine if it's truly injured or if it's just doing its natural thing and we're just living right next to it and watching, right. And whether we should intervene or not.
So I have a little story. So one year we had these little ficus trees that were in pots, and it was super windy. It blew over, and our dog was like sniffing around in the grass. So it was like maybe 20 or 30 feet away. And we're like, what is he doing? It's super windy. I go out there, and there's this little tiny nest of a hummingbird. Mm-hmm. And the branch had broken off. And I went, oh, geez, it blew off of that tree. So we hot glued it back in. We moved it over so that, it was very, very windy this day. We made almost like a sail on our balcony, and we stuck it behind that so that the wind wouldn't blow it over again. And it had little eggs, by the way, in the little nest. It actually grew. The babies grew, and they flew away.
You did 100% what you're supposed to do for that situation, because mom and dad were probably right there watching you do this whole thing. And, we want them to stay with their parents. We know they have their best chance of success, and reaching adulthood and maturity if they are with their parents.
We were blown away. So that my kids, we were like, oh, this is so exciting. We saved them because the little tiny eggs were still in there.
Tiny, yeah.
So tiny. Anyway, I think it's amazing what you do. I want to hear some fun stories about, what is your most interesting story that you can think of?
I have some pretty wild stories. I think probably one of the more recent ones was a woman brought us a baby rattlesnake in a vacuum. So she was cleaning someone's house, and thank goodness she had an older vacuum that still had a bag attached to it.
Wow.
And she was cleaning the cupboards, and there was a baby rattlesnake in the cupboard. And I give her a lot of credit because she sucked it up, but then didn't want to harm it and didn't know what to do. So she brought it into us.
The whole vacuum.
The whole vacuum.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
So we very, very carefully took apart the vacuum. I had a few students at the time that were kind of helping me from a distance. We get them like really long pliers as I'm kind of cutting the vacuum bag open to make sure I'm not cutting the snake as well.
Yeah.
And this little head poked out. And I just grabbed him really quickly, and he was totally unharmed. We kept him basically just for a day to make sure he was doing well, and then released him back out into the wild. And
wow.
It was definitely a pretty scary day. I love working with all of these different species, but the rattlesnakes are definitely an extra challenge. And I always joke around. Most of my exams are sedated because my patients are pretty dangerous, and we don't want them to hurt us or themselves. But not much I can do if the snake was already in a bag.
No, that is a crazy story. So let's pick back up on that in just a minute after we take a Smart Stop.
SmartStop knows the winning connection is when we elevate success together. SmartStop Self Storage, a California company with nearly 200 properties and over 15 million square feet of rentable storage in the US and Canada, is committed to positively impacting the communities we serve on the national and local level. By aligning our core principles of leading together, embracing change, and enhancing everyone's journey with local initiatives focused on education, health, and social welfare, we all elevate together. Through financial and strategic partnerships with nonprofits and prestigious organizations such as Cloudcast Media, Arrow McLaren IndyCar, Breast Cancer Research Foundation, Wounded Warrior Project, USC Athletics, the Brampton Steelheads, MMA fighters and boxers, and other unique athletes, we aim to foster a sense of unity and pride within the communities we serve, creating a shared identity and generating a positive atmosphere. To learn more about our core values, our locations, and career opportunities, please visit us at smartstopselfstorage.com. SmartStop, elevating success together.
Okay, so what were the students thinking as you're cutting the bag open and you're really being very delicate with this snake? Because it is part of the ecosystem, and I think that is an important thing for our listeners to hear today. That not every snake is a bad snake, not every rattlesnake is a bad snake. What are one of the things that they provide that is really important in the circle of life?
Yeah, really every species, that is native here is so important for the balance of our ecosystems. And I'm sure people don't love having rats and mice in their house. And to do so, you need predators. So
right.
You need your owls, you need your rattlesnakes around. And for pretty much every animal in San Diego, they're more scared of you than you are of them. And they just want to be left alone, and the snakes included. So that's why they have a rattle. They're telling you, please step away. And as long as you respect them, they're going to respect you. And obviously pulling them out of a vacuum bag is a different scenario. But, out in the wild, if you just give everyone space, they want nothing to do with you as well.
I honestly have never heard such a crazy story. That is amazing. So let's talk a little bit about life in general. Of you balancing your work life with your home life. How does that look?
Yeah, it's really difficult. And I think I recently did get this promotion to veterinarian manager. We had lost quite a few members of our leadership pack. And so taking on a lot more responsibility has been difficult. But I think really determining what is the most important to you, both inside and outside of work, is really important. So what you need to prioritize. And for me and my husband, we make the time, we go for a run in the mornings. Sundays are the only day we have off together. So that is designated, time to do things. I really love national parks. And coincidentally, you don't get cell phone reception there. So sometimes that means you really have to take the time off, and you can't get phone calls and emails, because I'm definitely addicted to my emails. If I see something pop up, I have to look at it right away. And that can get dangerous. So, taking that time and making sure you're able to check out here and there. And I'm fortunate that my job is my passion too. So it doesn't necessarily feel like work to me. But that is also a slippery slope, and I know that.
And that started with the internship.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. I try to recommend that to all young people when they're saying, I'm not really sure what I want to do in life. It's about trying things, because and I think a lot of people too also are shifting now more their careers. They could, they go to school for one thing, and then they go, they start doing that job, and they go, oh, this is not the career for me. Yeah. I recommend internships, because it really does help, I'm interested in this. Well, try it out for a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's really important for really any field, but definitely the internship I did, it was challenging. And there were definitely a lot of people there that were like, this is not for me. This was a fun 1-year experience, but I couldn't sustain this. And I think that's important to know your own limitations. And a lot of careers, a lot of things in life are very different than what you think they are until you start experiencing them.
I actually recently went to this fascinating meeting. It was the Fallbrook Land Conservancy. And they were talking about the behavior of snakes, and how they put these little microchip things in them and follow them so they can find out what becomes actually predictive behavior that we didn't even know. So I feel like the wildlife part of animals is really still evolving.
Oh yeah, it is a growing field, and research is really needed. Unfortunately, most of wildlife is going to be funded by nonprofits, so that makes it very limiting as what we can really fund and research. Specifically for wildlife rehabilitation, we want to know what happens after we release them back into the wild. We pin bones together, we're putting bandages, we're flight conditioning, we're doing all these crazy things. And newer research is coming out that, we are making a difference, and that's what we hope, right?
Yeah, that's the goal.
But it's a hard thing to research. I mean, we're rehabbing 1,500 hummingbirds every year. Wow. And so we can't put tiny little backpack transmitters on them, because those are thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So, we're doing our best guess on everything. And we're, every region is different. So what some regions might think is doable for them. For instance, we will release one-eyed owls, because we do think that owls, if they become blind in one eye, still have a good chance of survival here in San Diego. But other areas of the country and the world might say, oh, it's too cold here. They wouldn't survive. So a lot of it is extrapolating. A lot of it is making our best guess, and just doing the best we can.
Well, and I think, there are organizations that work together that provide a lot of these, not even just opportunities just to find out more about what actually happens with wildlife and their behavior, but also providing spaces for them to rehab and to, follow them and make sure they have a home and that sort of thing. Like the owl box thing. I saw recently that the I think it's a San Diego probation department through the San Diego Sheriff Office is now doing these owl box
that's
projects.
wonderful.
Yeah, I just saw that. Oh gosh, I think it was a couple of weeks ago at an event. There are so many things that are happening, and I love how San Diego is so innovative.
San Diego is really an amazing place to live for
really
anything
is.
Environmental or wildlife.
Yeah, and the fact I didn't realize that we were one of the richest sources of actually the wildlife and the observation and all of that, and that we have so many different things. So we are moving the needle. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this community specifically is just fantastic. I mean, I've never seen such a community so engaged with their wildlife, and and we really advocate coexisting because, like we said, it's a biodiverse hot zone.
That's right.
And there's a lot of people here too, so we all have to live together somehow.
Well, and I think a lot of young people really do enjoy that part of it. My kids actually grew up with Animal Planet too, and my son especially, he's really always been into that. And even just as a young kid, he would watch the hawks flying over. I mean, we have so many raptors here in San Diego County. Yeah. And they're just beautiful, and there really are a lot of them.
Yeah, we have a very healthy raptor population down here. Hawks, falcons, occasional eagles. It's really a great place for them.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about role models, because you mentioned a mentor that you really helped you. Were there any other in your life that you really sent you on the wildlife path, or is that just something you stumbled on with that one internship?
I feel very fortunate. I've had such a great support system. I mean, my parents are my biggest advocates, and my dad always wanted to be a vet, and so he really pushed me along, and him taking in wild sparrows that we found and really seeing them, like, he was a huge mentor of mine and still is. And then in veterinary school, I did connect with another mentor who does more zoo and wildlife focus, and he's really helped me kind of establish myself, and even having connections here at San Diego and at Project Wildlife. And I'm still reaching out to them frequently, and now it's become a trip, because now they're asking me, oh, can you mentor this student? Can you come speak at this conference? And it's becoming full circle at this point. It's a little bit crazy to think about, but it's really amazing.
That's great. So you walk into a room of young women. What would you tell them specifically about leadership and lessons that you've learned?
I would say making sure you're surrounded by good, non-toxic people is really important, and especially as you become a leader, and you might have a say of who you're hiring. I think it's really important that you're hiring based on personality more so than skill, because you can really teach skill, but you can't teach personality. Yeah. And so surrounding yourself with a really supportive, wonderful team that is going to lift each other up is really important.
Well, and working well with others, it's a team. You have to have the common goal of what you want to do together,
no matter what field you're in.
Yeah, and if you're kind of thinking more about, oh, I'm me-centric, it just doesn't work when you're trying to have common goals together.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because you're just off on a tangent. So let's talk a little bit about what you are most passionate about and what you honestly see for your future. Do you have any things coming up, new initiatives or anything?
We're working really hard on reaching out to the community again about our sit and stay or watch and wait campaign. We get in hundreds, thousands of wild animals that don't need to be in our care. Yeah. Because we have thousands more that do. Right. Project Wildlife sees 10 to 13,000 animals every year at our 2 campuses. And thousands of those are just healthy babies. And, again, being a nonprofit, we have pretty limited resources, time, space, money. And so we want to really make sure that we are looking at the animals that need to be in care. And I think because our community is so conscious about the animals around them, which is wonderful. They always want to jump in right away and, and save them. And they might not need saving.
Right.
So last year we started our renesting and reuniting initiative. And we created a program where we have volunteers come and help us, specifically, we're looking at raptors, so our owls and hawks, occasional falcons, that we call them abducted with good intent, meaning that someone thought that they were injured or orphaned and brought them in, and they're perfectly happy, healthy babies. And we are putting them back out into the wild to be with their parents. And this is so important, especially for our raptors, because something like a great horned owl will be in our care for 6 to 8 months.
Wow.
And they might be with their parents for almost a year. And they're watching them fail at hunting. And then, parents will jump in and feed them. And so it's a really amazing process that we just can't replicate, especially with the numbers that we have. So that's when we truly believe that they will do better out in the wild. And so we're taking all of our resources that we would take rearing them and now putting them towards getting them back out.
Yeah.
And so that's been a huge program. And we're looking to expand that to other animals.
Yeah.
Because we see the same thing with raccoons. We see the same thing with coyotes. We see the same thing with baby songbirds. And so these animals would just do better than they would in our care, and we can give them perfectly formulated food. We need to feed them every 30 minutes. We give them time outside to acclimate and fly, but we're never going to be their parents. And that's what's really important.
It's the kids. You need to get to the kids.
Yes.
Because the kids will tell their parents about it. So do you do a lot with the schools?
Yeah, we do. We have our outreach program. And so, we target Boy Scouts and Girl Scout groups, and other elementary schools as well. So yeah, we know that they're the place to start, and they're going to tell their parents, no, don't touch that owl. We need to make sure it doesn't need to come in first.
Exactly. Well, thank you for sharing some of your insight with us. Really excited to see all of the things that you will be doing. And I would love to connect you with like other school districts and all that. Because
absolutely.
I think starting out with the kids, let's face it, our kids don't know everything, but they do have a love of animals in the community. And, having that love of community for the animals, I think will give us better outcomes at the end when you're talking about conservation and, development and all of that. Because as, the state wants us to build quite a bit, we also need to conserve that open space because it is an important part of our communities. And a lot of people, I'm an inland sort of, I really, really enjoy like mountains and hillsides and hikes and all of that. And I think that the wildlife is a very important part of that.
Yeah. And the children, I think, innately want to help wildlife and want to, conserve the ecosystem. And ultimately, it's going to be up to them. So, we want them to have pride in the world that they live in. So I agree entirely.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Alexis.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learned how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with SheEO host, Rebecca Jones.
The incredible curated SheEO conversation you just enjoyed was brought to you by SmartStop, a leader in self-storage real estate and a company that upholds its core principles of leading together, embracing change, and enhancing everyone's journey. To learn more about SmartStop, please visit smartstopselfstorage.com.
Cloudcast Media.